Welcome to Second Take, the show that focuses on the issues behind the news. South Africa's Chamber of Mines facilitates centralised bargaining and wage negotiations for the country's gold and coal mining industries, but not for the labour-ravaged platinum mining industry. Mining Weekly editor Martin Creamer joins me to tell us more. Welcome, Martin.
Thanks, Shannon.
Now, there are very definite benefits to centralised bargaining, but the platinum industry has opted not to go this route. Can you tell us firstly what these benefits are, and secondly why platinum has chosen to avoid it?
Yeah, well, it's certainly centralised bargaining has worked very well in the coal and gold industries, and if you speak to anybody in those industries, they recommend it. So that is an important endorsement. You know, the people who are using it, they've managed to secure, multi-year wage agreements. The people stick to those wage agreements, they don't interrupt them midway. So they are very happy and say, look, this is a better way to go. So a benefit is that it works, it's working. The other benefit is when you've got a lot of trouble in an industry, perhaps it's good to centralise things, because then at least you can create stability. So I'm not saying that centralised bargaining is necessarily a silver bullet, but I'm saying the time has come for centralised bargaining in the platinum space. And they've got the models. They've got the coal models, they've got the gold models, those work well. And then the second part of your question was, why has Platinum chosen to avoid this route and go it alone and do company-specific deals, is because Platinum miners were at each other's throats. There's a legacy issue here. In the past, they never got on. In the old days of Impala Platinum and then JCI Platinum, which was part of Anglo-American, they were philosophically miles apart. You had the old Impala Platinum, which tended to back separate development. And when they worked in the northwest, which was then Baputatswana, they got very close to Mangope, who was the president there, who was appointed by the apartheid regime. So they were far closer to him. In fact, they tried to strip Mangope tried to strip the Bafokeng community of their rights to that platinum issue. So there's a lot of legacy there. And on the other side was JCI, part of Anglo-American group, pleading with the government to get rid of apartheid. So, the two minds didn't meet. And so they didn't want to have any sort of thing to do with each other. And that's why they did everything on their own. And that has come through now. I mean, even with the company that came out of the Goldfield stable, Northern Platinum, they were also on their own. Lonman did things at company level. And that is the way things have taken place. And decentralised, I suppose, if you add an S to it, it means descent. And of course, perhaps it's helped them to descend into hell here and pull the country with it. And at a lot of the analyst meetings these days, the mining analysts tear into mine management. They blame them for this crisis that we're having in the country and saying, look, sort it out. It's a management problem. I think it's a bit simplistic because there are a lot of parts to this. But they're saying, look, you're dragging the country down. You might think that, okay, your shares aren't doing well. But, your shares and what you do has an impact on Mr. Price, on Woolworth shares, on the Truworth shares, because people are not going to go in there and buy as they were. Just now, those shares will start falling. Do you know what big role you play here? Get yourselves, straightened out. So there's a lot of pressure on them, and hopefully they do come right.
Especially since those legacies are now over.
Oh, the legacies are long gone. And, Impala Platinum did 3 triple somersaults to repair the damage that it did to the Bafokeng community. And, of course, the Bafokeng are now the single biggest shareholder in Impala Platinum. I mean, that's how far it's gone. So it's a whole new era. But can you imagine, right until a couple of months ago, Impala Platinum was not a full member of the South African Chamber of Commerce. I think it was a country member. And, of course, Terence Goodlace, the new CEO, immediately has put an end to that because, I mean, he needs to get close to his stakeholders and other people in the industry at the moment to create stability. And, this is a sort of a country-critical turnaround that's needed. The turnaround in the platinum industry is country-critical. So, even the leaders in non-mining areas and the political leaders need to say, hey, guys, let's help you get this right.
Now, you've mentioned that centralised bargaining is not necessarily a silver bullet. What are some of the challenges and how can they be overcome?
See, centralised bargaining tends to keep the small guys out. And at the moment, what you need in South Africa is to try and get everybody in. And during the apartheid years, the black labour movement was homogenized and united. There was nothing that can split them. 18 years later, they're de-homogenized. And they can't, organised labour is going in different ways. You find this happens elsewhere in the world. And why I think centralised bargaining is important is to bring them all to the table so we can have more decorum. We don't want them negotiating on the street. Get them and get them to be able to be civil to one another in a public forum and to work intellectually. And but a challenge is that the way the legislation is written at the moment, it sort of favours this one union takes all. And we had the situation of 50 plus 1 member at Impala Platinum, which caused a lot of trouble in the February, March of this year. There was a prolonged strike. Impala Platinum was saying they're now having verification. If the CCMA, which is a statutory body appointed by the government, finds that the National Union of Mine Workers no longer has a majority, within the Impala Platinum arena, then the National Union of Mine Workers will have 3 months to regain that majority in terms of the statute. If they fail to do so, Impala Platinum intends to unravel that agreement and to introduce a new multi-union type agreement. So you don't have that closed shop approach, which I think doesn't work, but which our legislation tends to favour, on the grounds that, hey, black unions were homogenized. You don't have to worry about that. And if you have too many unions, they get at each other's throats, which we've seen in other countries. They fight. So the centralised approach is a way of adding dignity to the whole process. And when a decision is taken, that the majority of people stick to this, and you don't have a wage agreement that you arrive at today and they start disputing it tomorrow. So we do need that centralised base at the moment for stability. And it is being said along the corridors of mining power that it must go this way. And platinum is being nudged in this direction. I think it should have happened straight after the Impala Platinum debacle, or maybe even during the Karee mine Lonman problems last year. Straight after that, they should have done something. But of course, hindsight is always an exact science.
Now, on that note, can you tell us the problems between the emerging union AMCU and the NUM, and how centralised bargaining can assist in an instant like that?
Yeah, again, with the unions in a power play, it was great to hear Impala Platinum say, look, we've got them around the same table. It's very important that you start getting a structure to which everybody agrees, a process to which everybody agrees, so that the talking takes place together and not wildcatism, which we've seen on the unofficial side. We don't want to return to that. So I think this is a way of just sorting out the problem. Maybe, in 20 years' time we say, no, we go back to decentralised, but for the time being, this is it. And because of the hostility between the two, it'll be a way of ameliorating that, softening that hostility, bringing them together and making them realise, look, hey, we're all partners in this. We're all targeting the same thing, a better deal for the workers. And I think they'll get back to basics. In the meantime, these platinum companies are burning cash. If you see the way the cash position of Impala Platinum has gone from 4.6 billion in the kitty to like 0.6 billion in the kitty in 12 months, you realise that when these labour insurrections take place, they take a huge toll. Not only is production affected, and you think, well, look, they're not on a strike, they've gone back, but there's still a lot of unsettlement. You can't reach your production targets. At the same time, we've had Europe, which isn't buying cars, and the price dropped. And even Northern Platinum, you could see there that their cash was burnt, from 1.7 billion over 12 months down to 1 or 0.1, I think, billion. So it's a big change. And even the misinformation that came about on pay was huge. And I think if there had been a centralised structure, there would have been less pay slip semantics. As the unions do deal, particularly on a decentralised basis, there are little headings that the pay get on the pay slip, because that's how the unions negotiate it. So that the employers want them to show, well, look, you've got that. So they were harping on this basic pay, which was not the pay that they were receiving. I mean, Northam came out straight and said, look, our rock drill operators earn 11,000 Rand a month, and if you take the cost to company of those drillers, it's 12,500 Rand a month to 13,000 Rand a month, depending on whether they got a live-in allowance or a live-out allowances. Those live-out allowances you see coming through decentralised structures, it's become an issue. If you're working on a mine in the northwest and your family is in the Eastern Cape, you don't care whether you live in a shack or not. You want that cash, eh? You don't care whether you get nutritious food, even though you might be on the brink of TB. So it's very bad. I think that whoever introduced this living out allowance needs to rethink that, because the social consequences are becoming horrific. People that go to Rustenburg now, they say, gee, the informal settlements just springing up everywhere. I've heard of guys, because they live so far from the mine, they come speeding in a taxi, and the taxi comes screeching to a halt in front of the shaft, and these guys jump out to make sure they get down in the skip at the right time, because once that skip goes down and you're not there, you've lost your shift. You've lost your shift. So there are a lot of issues, and when you look at what Implats has done, I think they've got about 1,500 family homes, and they give the workers interest-free loans to take those. Now, why isn't the uptake of that enough? Because we've had this migratory labour. People are saying, look, my family's not here, I'll live in the single room. So they've converted all those hostels. They've done a full conversion now into single room units or double room units. So that job in terms of the mining charter has been done. I think what people think of in the future, let's employ near mine communities so that they will buy up those houses, because they want to build up another 3,000 family houses. They want the workers to take them up so that the wives and the kids are also there. It makes a huge difference to the stability of the area.
And if you've got that migratory labour, then the near mine communities are not benefiting, because they can't be employed because the Eastern Cape people are getting the jobs. Exactly,
but there's a whole legacy issue here. You can't just fire people. They've been working for a long time, so it's quite it'll have to be worked on.
And then one final question, with centralised bargaining, will that also standardise wages? As you say, some companies are paying up to 13,000 Rand cost to company. Will that be a standard amount overall?
It'll set a benchmark. Individual companies can pay more. It's always a minimum. You can go ahead of that if you want to, but you sort of lay the foundation. And I think in these circumstances, it's essential at the moment.
Well, we hope everything of the best for those families.
Good, Shannon.
Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure.
That's the show for today. Join us again next time for more news and insights into what's happening in the mining world.